Corrina!
Oh my gosh!
I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your support. Oh my gosh.
I'm a little bit jealous because I'm never going to get to take that test unless we convince them, like, educators with the ICF don't get to take it. If we're MCCs, we don't take it. And so I'm really curious. And I know you're coming here wanting to be just so helpful. So congratulations, you just passed your ICF credentialing exam. And you're coming here, so sweet, to be really helpful to everybody who wants to find out more about what to expect. So should we just do it kind of chronologically? You want to start out with, like, how do you schedule your test?
Yes, great. So I had the option of doing it either in person or remotely. Apparently, when I actually looked into it, living in Cambridge, there wasn't a live centre that I could go to. I would have had to travel to London. So actually, I decided to do it at home, to do it remotely. And so that's an online proctored version, which I thought meant that you would kind of see the person and you would be almost like in an online space with others. It's not. It's like being just watched by the computer without any two-way experience. So that's worth people knowing. So I scheduled it was early UK time. So it was 8 to 11, the one that I scheduled. And when you schedule, they suggest that you test your system, that you have the correct internet connection, that you can download the software. The first time I tried testing my system, it wouldn't download the software. And I had to wait a little while back and forth. And then I tried again and it did work. So I don't know why it didn't work originally, but there could be glitches like that along the way, possibly.
Yeah, and I've heard that from others too. So it sounds like it's really important to give yourself time to get as much of the tech stuff out of the way before the day of the test. I've also heard that there is a slightly better pass rate in person, and they're not quite sure. The ICF is not sure exactly why that is. It's not a huge gap, but just so people know. And well, so I would just say both are equally good options. Like,
yes, and I wonder if it's because people are having, the first few minutes of the test, we'll get onto this, I was feeling stressed because of the tech. So I guess if you're in person, you don't have that responsibility on your shoulders that have I got everything right and have I taken the right photos and all of that. So, but that's what I'm hoping this video will help people to feel like that bit's covered. I can just focus on the test itself.
Yeah. So tell us about this tech. What happens before the test?
So the test is actually really thorough and helpful. It goes through your internet connection. It does a sound, audio test and hearing. Can you hear the computer test? It does a video webcam test. It checks that you have closed all other browsers. You have to close all software, all programs, because it kind of locks. It's called a lock, browser lock. So it takes control of your computer in that way that it locks, so you're not opening your web browser and checking something. So that was all done in advance. I got all my green ticks, so I felt like that was handled. On the day, though, on the actual morning of checking in, so you have half an hour check-in. As soon as I checked in and I went to run the system, it said you don't have the most up-to-date version. So that's what started the, okay, just to know that you might not, they might be changing it every week or so, I don't know. So just be prepared that you may, because I had the half hour scheduled to check in thinking, I don't really need it. I've tested it in advance. I needed the full 30 minutes. So that's the tip, is when you schedule it, know that half an hour before we'll be fully preparing. That's not like sitting waiting time. That is you going through all the things that they're asking for you to do.
Yeah, and I've heard that it can be really helpful to have your coaching skills in your back pocket, because it can be kind of flustering to be doing tech when you actually just really want to focus on the test question. Like, you've prepared, your PCC markers, you've read the code of ethics, you're like, watch some videos. I think Awaken has gotten a lot of views on our video. In fact, did you watch that video?
I watched 2 videos that you did, so that was super helpful. Yeah.
Okay.
Would highly recommend people watch that for the content side of things, and then this video for the tech side of things.
Perfect. A good combo. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what happened? So after you kind of used your whole 30 minutes to get the tech, how did you get into your like the mindset you wanted? Because you said it was 3 hours, right? 8 to 11.
Yeah.
So what did you?
7:30 to 8. So it was getting downloading the software again, running through the whole test, but then taking a photo of myself with my mobile phone. So luckily my mobile phone was fully charged. That's a good tip because you're going to need your mobile phone. So taking a selfie to make sure that you are who you are, taking a photo of your passport. Now, this is going to sound so funny, but that was actually really tricky by myself with my passport, because, you know, they go like this, right? So I had to find things to plop my, because you've cleared your desk completely in readiness. You then have to get your passport flat so that you can get a really good photo of your ID or driving license or whatever it is you're choosing to use. Probably driving license would have made more sense because it's just a card. And then you have to take 4 photos with your mobile phone of the 4 directions of the room. And I think maybe your desk as well. So it's the desk, front, back, and the 2 sides. And as I was doing that, I was like, okay, there's a storage box here. So I went and took that down to a different floor of my house. And then, there's a book over there. So I tried to clear it as much as possible. So then that had all been submitted. And then I was put into a queue. It said you are number 4 in the queue to be welcomed into the exam. So that it went down 4, 3, 2. But then I got front of queue and it said, there's a problem with the connection. We're putting you back in the queue. So then I went back to position 4 or 5 or something. So that was a bit again. So in terms of that, just coaching mindset, just for me, it was about constantly focusing on my breathing, making sure that I had that out breath, that I was trusting that everything that was happening was in service of me and supportive of me, and that it was all okay. And it actually does say that once you've started the check-in, even if you're later than your exam start time, you will be let into the exam and get your full time. So that was really reassuring that it wasn't eating time away from the exam itself.
That is. And how early did you know that? Like, I'm glad you're telling us now.
Yeah, I knew that once. So once I was in the check-in queue, it said, now that you're in the check-in queue to be welcomed, you will start the exam no matter if you're in late now, because that's, I guess, on them that you're in the queue. Got it.
All right. Anything else that needs to be said about the tech prep before you get in?
Yeah, just that then getting myself back in a really calm, resourceful, spacious, I've got time, I can do this, competent mindset was then absolutely as critical as making sure that my computer was working.
Right. And one thing I love about you, Corrina, is that you've really delved deep into the work of Byron Katie.
Yes.
And you're even going to be teaching a Byron Katie course for Awaken Coach Institute. And so I'd love to hear, did that come into play for you?
It did, because it's all the thoughts that are getting in the way, that are causing the stress, that are blocking me from feeling peace, right? So thoughts like, oh, I'm going to lose exam time. It's not going to work. All the thoughts that would arise and cause stress, I could just notice them. And with a breathing practice and a mindfulness practice around that, go, is that true? Do I know that it's true, that it's going to take time away? Could the opposite be true? And then, of course, on the screen comes, you will not have any time delayed. It's like, the turnaround is true. I will not have any time removed. And there'll be a moment later that I'll tell you about right at the end where I really had to use the work. So we'll get to that in the finale.
Okay. I wish I could take your class right now because it's so interesting. You've already given us this little mini summary of how it works. Like,
yes,
there's the thought. Is it true? Can you be sure? Is it true? What's a turnaround?
Yeah. And just to
Super
notice what
helpful.
the impact is on the body, you know, when I'm believing that I'm not going to get in on time, it causes such stress and such that nervous system response that means that I'm not resourceful, that I can't think clearly and spaciously. So it's just so important that we deal with that mindset.
Okay. So you did your breathing, you did the work of Byron Katie, a couple quick turnarounds, you got yourself in, and then did you want to tell us, like, what is it like when you get in the test, the online proctoring, the format? What do you want to say about that?
Yeah, so online proctoring is simply that you believe that at all times you're being watched. I mean, who knows what I actually was? I believe I was. But you have a picture of yourself on the screen and it says recording. So, and the idea is that you mustn't step your head out of that little rectangle at any time within the first hour and a half, and then the break, and then the hour and a half. So when it's the live exam, you mustn't step your head out of the box where your webcam is seeing you. You mustn't talk. So you mustn't, if you're someone who likes to like think things through, like can't do that. So that's really worth knowing. You can't write down things. Again, if you're someone who likes to write down and try and make sense of a scenario, you can't do that. And I think they're really tricky aspects of the test that you can't use your kind of processing that you might use. And then at all times within the test, you can access the instructions again, if you want to, but having come and watched your Awaken recordings about the structure, I didn't need to do that more than just once, just to check one thing. So that's worth having in your mind, like there are 81 situations, this is what you do. Having all those beforehand means you don't have to use test time reading the instructions.
Okay, good to know.
So then each of the situations, so you're shown the situation, it will have it numbered. And in the top right of the screen, it says what number it is. So number 1 of 41 for the first half. And it will tell you the time left as well. So it's about 2 and a bit minutes per question. And I made the choice to go through all of them relatively at pace. And then to go back, because you can flag any items, to go back and you get a review screen with all the items you flagged, and spend a bit more time on the ones that I wasn't immediately quite sure about. And I think that was a good approach. You could instead spend that full 2 minutes on each question, but you won't then have much review time. The thing that I found quite tricky is each situation can have quite a lot of detail in it. So again, if you're someone who maybe reads quite slowly, it's a lot to take in. And often as well, there were multiple characters in the scenario. So often there would be like the coach, the client, maybe the client's sponsor, the coach's spouse, the client's sponsor's friend, the coach's spouse's friend. And so part of it for me, by question number 40 of the first half, was like, hang on, who is who? Whose spouse is this?
But it's not like each question is totally different. So it's like it reminds me of a French driving test or something, where it's like it gives you all the situations, and there could be a pedestrian and a biker and a light and a truck and a kid kicking a ball, and you have to, and then they ask you a question about how many meters, and you're like, oh, I didn't know I had to pay attention to that detail. But so it's kind of really, it's actually kind of cool that you need to be so aware of all of the.
Well, I found it really useful to try and imagine an actual person who I have either coached, who I've coached, who fitted the description as near as possible. So let's say it was someone who wanted to leave their job and find something different. I was like, right, what client do I know? Okay, let's take him. Okay, so it's him and it's his spouse. And then I was coaching him, but I had this, and that helped me to populate the scenario.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
And then I've heard too, well, what the ICF told us, educators in a call, was that they really invite you not only to think about like, what would I do in this situation? Because what you would do may not be one of the answers, either best or worst. And so it's really to think, which of these answers is the closest to the competency? Like, even if I could think of a better thing to do than what they gave,
Yes.
which one is the most aligned with the actual competency?
Yes.
So I don't know if that.
Yeah, because there's a reason that they, as a group, have chosen this question. It's not random. It's not, there is a reason that they're trying to test the nuance of some understanding. So if there's time and headspace to think that, and that is what I did with the ones that were really tricky, that I had flagged and that I'd left, right to the end to review again. I was like, what is it they're trying to discern? What answer would I give versus someone who maybe hadn't prepared for this exam or hadn't been coaching as long or hadn't, didn't know the competencies or didn't know the code of ethics? Like, trying to discern that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else we should know about the format of the test?
I really enjoyed the flagging. I thought that was really good because it meant you could just skim by the ones that were quite straightforward, flag the ones that weren't. The review screen was really straightforward. You had the questions just listed 1 to 41, and you had a flag by the ones which you had flagged. So you could then just go through the flagged ones, and then there was time in both the first and the second half for me to go and look at the other ones as well, and just check, am I happy with that? And how it actually works is you drag and drop. So the scenarios at the top, and then you drag the best answer to the best answer box, and you drag the worst answer to the worst answer box. And you can really easily just move them around if you don't agree with what you said originally.
Okay. And is it okay to ask, like, how hard was the test for you as a PC? Well, you're achieving your PCC as we speak, waiting for the ICF to, you've already got the passing results. Your PCC is in the mail.
Yeah.
So exciting. What would you say was challenging or easy for you about the questions?
Right. And I've been coaching for 18 years. Right.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think the main thing was trying to understand who was who in each scenario, and trying to, as a mum of 2 little children who don't sleep very much, just having the brain power to keep going at that focus for 3 hours with that much content. I found that really challenging.
Okay.
I don't feel, because I reviewed all the questions, I was happy with my answers. So I don't think there's anything else I could have done to prepare content-wise, which was a nice feeling. The one thing that I would have done, which is going to be an unusual suggestion, is the day before I would have not used the computer screen at all, because I actually felt my eyes were quite strained by the end of, even just by the end of that first half, just from reading and kind of focusing in that way. If someone can take a walk, do some yoga, not use a screen, just so that their physical apparatus that they're using is as relaxed as possible, I think that would really help.
Yeah. Wow. This is so helpful. I really appreciate you coming in with a spirit of really wanting to help our whole community do well. So it sounds like, okay, so the day before, you really start with that mindset, relaxation, your stuff, the competencies, the code of ethics, and you let yourself relax, enjoy, soften your eyes, get some sleep, be ready to focus for 3.5 hours. Be ready to get into your relaxed state when the testing starts. All right. Any other advice about the day before, or?
I don't think about the day before. There's a 5-minute break, which is necessary if you have a bladder. So for the 5 minutes, you are there in the little box still, which says recording, but it says you may leave the screen for the 5 minutes. They don't need you to take the laptop to the toilet. You can leave for the 5 minutes. And it says you must be back within this rectangle by the time the 5 minutes up, otherwise your exam is cancelled. So that's really important to know. That's not I don't know if other people have broached that, but I don't think you can go beyond the 5 minutes for that break. So that's important to be back within your screen. So actually, by the time I've been to the bathroom, I then used the rest of that break to look out of the window, try and get some long distance view, just so that my eyes had that break, had some water. I actually also did a bit of palming with my eyes, just to kind of rest them and warm them and feel less strained in that area. And then just breathe again. And then what threw me was when the test second half began, I suddenly saw a chat on my screen from the online proctor saying, now that you're back from the break, kindly re-show us your desk. So I picked up my laptop and just turned the webcam facing down. So that's one thing to know, that after break, you may be asked to re-show your desk.
Right. And someone else told me that they couldn't even have a box of Kleenex. Like they had a cold and they told me that they were allowed to have one Kleenex that they showed both sides to the camera to show that it didn't have anything written on it.
Wow.
But other than that, their Kleenex box had to be out of reach. And so just, I would think if you're a messy person, you have a little tidying up to do the day before.
Yes,
your desk space.
That is the other thing to do the day before, would be to clear, like if I had kind of really thought about moving some of the stuff, because this is my office, but also a storage space, I would have just moved things in those 4 dimensions. The other thing I just remembered, so because you, when you do the check-in, you're using your phone to take the photos of the passport or driving license and your directions. They then say, you must now put your phone out of arm's reach and come back to the computer. So I had put it like kind of over there, so I couldn't get it right out of arm's reach, but I hadn't turned, and I'd put it on silent, but I hadn't turned my notifications off. On the screen, it then said, if we have a problem with the check-in process, we may phone you, or we may use your phone. So I was like looking, like, are they trying to phone me, looking to see if the screen was flashing. When I found out later, it was just WhatsApp notifications coming through. But what I would advise is turn off all notifications from your phone, have it out of arm's reach, but visible so you could see if it was flashing in case they were trying to contact you. Because that was just one other little kind of like niggly stress that I could have done without.
Right. Okay. So put your phone on a little holder somewhere where you can see it, notifications off.
Correct. Yeah. And just out of arm's reach.
I'm feeling more relaxed already. I hope everyone watching is like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
All right. And then what happened at the end of the test?
So we'd got to the end and I actually felt pretty good at the end. A, it was done. B, I felt that I had passed. I felt that there was enough kind of that I was really confident in that I had passed. I also really was very compassionate with myself that if it turned out I hadn't, that would have been okay as well, because it's a really, really hard test. And we can talk about that another time, but I think very good coaches could fail it,
Well, and they do actually,
they do,
because there's a certain amount of subjectivity, especially about the worst answer. Yes. And opinions may vary, just like we know, for those of us who are who have done the assessor course, and there is variability in how we assess the coach's skills, even if we're all looking at the same PCC markers to do the assessment. And I have heard of people going for their MCCs and PCCs who've had to retake.
Yes.
So
yes,
it's just good to know it's not a huge deal to retake.
No,
I think it's like $105 US, and you can take it the next day. I mean, you can, it's not like you have to wait 6 months or something.
Yes.
You can do it unlimited amounts of time. So not a lot of stress if you need to retake it.
Yes.
Still, it's good to know compassion for yourself.
Yes.
For any differences of opinion that you have, or you would have thought doing this was worse than doing, what someone else thought was the worst thing to do. So
yes. So that felt really important at the end, holding both, right? Holding like, that was solid, that was good, I'm proud, I'm happy, And it's fine if I haven't, that doesn't make me not a great coach. So I held that at the end, and I was so happy to have got to the end. And then it said, you have completed the test. Your online proctor has your scorecard for you. Would you like to complete a feedback survey? And being the, helpful, wanting to be supportive person I am, I clicked, sure, yes, which took me to SurveyMonkey on my web browser. And I couldn't then get back to the online proctor, the Pearson VUE. So I was like, no, where's it gone? Like desperately just wanting to kind of get that sense of completion at the end, like to walk out with a scorecard, even if it had been a fail, just to have known. So I was quite heartbroken at the end that I didn't get that completion that I had wanted. And I went straight on the phone to Pearson VUE, and they talked me through, like, basically, very simply, you go to your ICF account, your profile, and down the right-hand side, it will say like view scorecard or view exams or something. So you can go and access it through your ICF profile, which I didn't know, obviously, at the time, but now I do. So I would advise either don't do the survey or do it, and just know that when you won't get the scorecard probably, and you can go into your ICF account and download it. And like 16 minutes later, they had sent the email. But my fear, which again, could do the work of Byron Katie with, was that somehow that wouldn't have saved, right? It was not just, I don't know what my score was, but I don't know if that even had saved my exam, because I'm now not in the system, and will they count that as me like leaving the yada yada. So I was like,
you are saving so many people 16 minutes of potential heartache right now. Thank you.
Good. And that, that for me was that, is it true that it hasn't saved it? I don't know. Is it true that I won't be able to get the scorecard? No, that's not what's going on. So it's kind of talking down that, because it's it's an exam situation. All of those heightened thoughts and everything are there. So it can be good if maybe some of this video can help with the talking down.
Right. You can do the survey and still get your scores a few minutes later on the ICF website. Yeah. And when you pass, we will cheer you on.
Yes, we will.
So much. And if you do a retake, we will support you fully, because I can imagine you learned a lot. I found it very insightful, actually, just from the practice questions that are available publicly.
Yes.
It really does make you think of, oh yeah, what would be not a good thing to do? What would be the best thing to do? What would align with the competency? So I don't know if you had some learning.
Absolutely. I identified elements as I came out of like, I want to look into that more, because I haven't had that situation in 18 years. But if I did, okay, let me go and proactively think about, well, actually, what would I do in that situation? And it also creates some, I guess, a sense of solidarity with other coaches, that other coaches are dealing with these scenarios, even if I'm not, that are really nuanced and tricky, and that we're all, as a community of professionals, constantly learning and constantly helping each other to be the very best for our clients and for our profession.
Right. And my impression is that, even if there's things we don't like about the exam, as, for a lot of people, change is rough, especially it's a pretty significant upgrade from the previous exam, from what I can tell. And even the reaccreditation process, it's been very painful to spend so many hundreds of hours of my time writing policy documents and things. However, we as coaching educators are bringing really solid DE&I policies and other things that are important in the world into what we're creating here. So change, let's just take it as a really positive upscaling of the profession.
Yes.
And thank you for being one of the first people to take the new exam and sharing your experiences, so that the rest of us can go in with a little bit more calm about the tech and how to prepare and what to expect. I just loved how you talked about, like, even what you're going to see on the screen and where the numbers are, just even that kind of stuff is so, so helpful. Anything else that would be important to say to folks getting ready to take the test?
Let me check my list.
Okay.
No, that's literally everything.
All right. Any words of love and wisdom that you'd like to share with people who are about to go into the situation?
Yes, it does not in any way affect your identity as a great coach, whether you pass or fail, and you will just do your absolute best. What is the wisdom that I would have wanted to hear? Is to try and enjoy it to some extent. Like at one point within the test, I did get a like, let's just enjoy this. Let's just have this be light and fun and like curious, I guess, to tap into that coach skill of curiosity. I'm like, oh, what is the next scenario? Oh, what would I do? Oh, I wonder what that would be like. Oh, like that. I think an attitude of curiosity rather than pass fail is going to really support you.
Wonderful. Corrina, thank you so much. And congratulations again.
Thank you.
So much. And I cannot wait to be with you in your course this summer. Like I could use a little work on my own mindset and turnarounds and things these days. So really looking forward to taking the work class with you and getting to spend more time with you. You're so lovely. And
thank you.
I'm so thrilled that you passed, and 18 years later, your PCC is just one more thing that lets the world know what a lovely coach you are. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.